I have one more item before the meeting starts. It will be starting in about 2 minutes or so. These are postcards that I made, and you can write on them, and you're able to color on them. And I made them because I want to offer people a chance to have a postcard or 2 or 3 to write to, well, anyone you want, but I was hoping you might write to like the Republican Congress people from Colorado to tell them about what you think. Or you could write to the Democratic Congress people and tell them how much you support them. But that's what these are for. And I have quite a few of them, so you'll be able to get them from me at the back table. Okay?
I keep a very strict person. It usually means I don't check my person as much as I'd like.
I mean, it's two differences like that, or worst case scenario.
I talk about them. Andrew, thank you again for being so wonderful to serve. You're great.
You did. Yeah, and it also
We're going to talk about this all
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. My name is Andrew Fisher. I'm the captain of House District 6A. Thank you all for coming tonight. It's good to see a full room. First, before we get to any announcements, I am going to bring up our House District 6 representative, Sean Camacho. His son is in a playoff basketball game that's starting soon, so we're going to give him the floor first. Please welcome Representative Camacho.
Hello, HD6! All right. Well, thank you very much for giving me the personal privilege of skipping the line on the agenda. I really do appreciate that. So it has been an incredibly busy month since I've last seen you. I think it is really, really ramped up. This morning, I finished my committee at 2:30, and then was right back at the Capitol at 7:30 for the rest of the day. And I just left my second committee because I was stepping in for our good friend Steve Woodrow in House District 2, who is on a 2-week trial. So I have been pitching in to help cover his committees while he's taking care of some of his clients and doing his day job. So it's been quite the month. So there's a lot going on. I thought I'd just maybe give an update on some of my bills because I think that's what you sent me there for. So let's give a status on what's been going on. So when I last talked to you, I talked about House Bill 1020, which is Earned Wages Access. If you don't remember what that is, that was a licensing scheme to allow hourly workers to access their pay before payday. And I can tell you, we fought incredibly hard, the majority leader and I, on this, but with any new licensing scheme, especially when it's involving a new type of financial product, there's always going to be some pushback. There's always going to be some people that don't fully understand. So the majority leader and I made the decision to postpone indefinitely that bill because it got to the point in negotiations that it was no longer helping working people. It was helping more private interests. And that's not where I wanted to take that bill. So I made the decision with the majority leader to go ahead and kill my own bill, and we'll bring it back another time, and we'll keep fighting for working people to access their money in the safest, most responsible way possible. So more to follow on that one. So unfortunately, I come to you with a legislative loss, but for a good reason. All right, so what's second? The other one that I'm incredibly proud of is, if you remember me talking in my campaign for HD6 or just at any time, you know that I have 3 jobs. I am a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force Reserve. I have reserve duty this weekend, actually. I'm still an attorney and I'm your representative. And one thing that is really vitally important to me, and as I know is Senator Ball as well, is veterans' mental health. And if you remember from the last election, that very long ballot, that was about a million pages that you had to work through, in there was Prop KK. But does anybody know what Prop KK was? All right. Senator Ball doesn't count. Anybody? All right. Well, Prop KK was something that voters in this state overwhelmingly approved by about 55% to place a tax on ammunition to fund mental health, domestic violence, and other services. So my bill was selected to be the bill to implement the veterans' mental health portion of Prop KK. Yes! So just today, it passed through the House. It was unanimous coming out of committee, and then I was not allowed to shame the Republicans on the floor, but I can shame them here. It made it out of that first committee unanimous with Republican support, and then they started saying it was a gun bill because they were using tax revenue from from ammunition to fund this program. So they, instead of doing the right thing and caring for veterans, because they are a party of 4 veterans, right? Right. Every single one of them voted against this bill. But it didn't matter, because here in House District 6, not only do we make sure we elect strong Democrats, we did this across the state, and we had such an overwhelming amount of people, we passed that bill on a straight Democratic ticket. So now it's up to Senator Ball and his chamber to get it across the finish line so we can get the governor to sign it, and I think he will. So that is $5 million for community veterans' mental health across the state, and we should all be incredibly proud of that. I had a second veterans' mental health bill. It was slightly more controversial, but it was incredibly important. So there are 2 psychiatric youth mental health facilities in the state. One is in Florence, and a new one will be built on the Fort Logan campus in West Metro Denver. The facility in Florence is not state-owned, and it's in the middle of nowhere because you're in Florence. So if you have a youth that is experiencing a mental health episode and leaves that campus there in Florence, you can find that person once everyone has a chance to calm down and bring them back for the treatment they need. The problem is, when that facility gets built in West Metro Denver, if you have that same episode in the Denver metro area, your health outcome is going to be drastically lower, because now you have an opportunity to be hit by a car, which Representative Espinoza in House District 4 was my co-prime on that. That happened in her district. There was a youth that was experiencing a mental health episode, left one of those facilities and was hit by a car and died. So it was incredibly important to the state to be able to change state law to allow a fence, a secure fence, not anything you think of, to essentially enclose an entire campus. So if you have a youth that has experienced an episode, they can have staff members following that person or not following that person because they won't be able to leave the campus, but they can get away from whatever situation is triggering that person. And that bill is also making its way through. It passed out of committee unanimously, and we're going to make sure. The other thing that's really important about this bill is without this change in statute, we would have to send our youth to red states, frankly, that do provide this level of care. So Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, at great cost to everybody in this room. So hopefully that bill is able to make it through the House. We can provide safety for our kids who are getting that treatment in West Metro Denver sooner rather than later, because that facility will be opening in 2026. So that is on its way. That bill is 1172. And if this world isn't small enough, does anybody remember Leora Joseph? All right, we play 6 degrees of separation. If you didn't know this, Leora Joseph was actually one of my law professors back in Massachusetts. And Leora Joseph is also the governor-appointed head of Colorado Mental Health, Behavioral Health. And this was her agency's bill. So she was sitting right behind me when this bill was going through committee, and we're holding it down for East Denver of doing really great things for the state. So that bill hopefully will make it to the other chamber sooner rather than later as well. And then my fourth bill, which is gun show regulation. So I talk a lot about when you hold one of these seats, and if you didn't know this is the third most Democratic seat in the state. And you're probably wondering where the other two. Just north of us, House District 8 is the first most, and the other one is my co-primes, Representative Junie Joseph from Boulder. So we ran a bill that would close or effectively strengthen the gun show loophole. So what we were seeing is that at gun shows, there was very loose regulations. We have great state laws, but they were not being enforced. So there were ghost gun purchases happening in the parking lot. There were illegal magazines being sold at the gun show. We have passed, the bill is working its way through. It'll be on second reading probably this week to close all of those loopholes and provide more stringent penalties. It's going to require, if you have a gun show, to get insurance, to submit a security plan to the police, which puts them on notice to actually enforce it, and to put cameras up so we can make sure we are deterring bad conduct and actually be able to follow up. So that bill will be working its way through as well. And of all things, a gun bill that has made it through pretty much unscathed, and we've been able to convince the gun show operators to at least go neutral and not oppose it. So that is a huge win for anybody who's really concerned about having weapons of war on our streets, because we, again, are delivering for everybody in this room and our community. So thank you. So my last bill is actually with good old DPD here in the back and DPS. That should be scheduled for committee on Thursday. So it's not a surprise to anybody in this room that the state is about $1.2 billion it needs to fund. We're not in debt, $1.2 billion, but we have a budget shortfall. It's almost a distinction without a difference, because the things that we're not funding are really important, such as education, housing, all these other things. But what we don't have money for is to pay teachers. So this bill allows Denver Public Schools to save some money on retirement, because unlike most other state agencies, they're very well funded in their retirement. So instead of continuing to contribute to a well-funded system, we're allowing them just a little bit of a break. And if this bill passes as introduced, it'll put $800 in every Denver public school teacher's pocket this year. So there's a lot of headwinds. This one's really tricky because the political reality is I'm from Denver. And if you're a Democrat from Colorado Springs, it may not be as important to you. But we're going to try, because this is really important for us to do, to take care of the people who are taking care of our kids. And I'm really excited for that bill on Thursday. So more to follow for next month. What is that?
Way more than 800. I just looked. It's like the average teacher will make $2,000 more
Wow.
per year. It's just not just teachers. It's also bus drivers and lunch folks and paras and facilities folks. So everybody across the board will do it. And I will say this: I came to Sean, and Sean's like, "I want to do something for the schools. I want to do something for the teachers." And I asked every single Denver representative and every single Denver senator to see if they can carry this bill and do it. And Sean's like, it's a challenge, it's going to be big, and I'm going to do it. So Sean is really carrying our water for Denver Public Schools. So,
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. Hopefully we can get across the line because it is going to be hard. So what has been going on otherwise? So one thing I really like doing is we are kind of in, I wouldn't say a bubble, but we're really engaged citizens. But I think it's really important to know what other citizens are calling me about. So the things that were most called to my phone or with the most emails I've received in the last month were, again, Senate Bill 3. Does anybody remember what Senate Bill 3 is? All right. So Senate Bill 3 is a new law that's working its way through. It went through a lot of deliberation and sausage making on the Senate side. But the goal is to essentially limit the magazine size for assault weapons. We here in HD6, and former Representative Epps was really strong on this issue. She tried to get assault weapons out of our streets. And it was unsuccessful because the governor doesn't want to do that. Fine. So what Senate Bill 3 is trying to do is trying to go after those magazines that feed those weapons. So it has been incredibly contentious. It's been incredibly, there's a lot of vitriol going around about that. And it's going to make its way to the House sooner rather than later. And it's going to be more late nights, more vitriol, more threats, unfortunately. But it's something, again, that we need to be doing for our communities, because if there's anything that elected officials feel, especially I do, and I'll speak for you on this, Matt, it's making sure that we're representing this community and making sure that people feel safe walking around our community. So it's incredibly important that we pass this bill. And the other thing, which is incredibly controversial, and I understand everyone is across the board on this, it is House Bill, I don't even remember, it's the wage tip bill.
The wage tip bill.
So the reason why I was in committee until 2:30 this morning was on the wage tip bill. Does anybody essentially know what that bill is, or perhaps have heard of it? By show of hand, who's heard of the wage tip bill? Wow, that was more than I was expecting. Okay. This one is really tough because there has been so much of a circus around this bill. There's been a lot of bullying, and I'll call it out. So when this bill was first introduced, our old representative, Steve Woodrow, carried this bill. Incredibly controversial because at its core, as introduced, would take $4 off for tipped workers on the tipped minimum wage. And why is this necessary, or why are people even discussing it? Well, when this bill passed in 2019, the legislature fixed the tip credit at $3. That tip credit stayed static for 5 years through COVID, through everything else. So what we are seeing is 80% of the restaurants that are closing in the state of Colorado are here in the metro area. And we know that when they close, restaurants open and close, there's a natural cycle to restaurants, but this isn't a natural cycle. This is a very difficult thing that restaurants are experiencing here in Denver, and they're not reopening. And I was very skeptical of this bill because I think I campaigned on working people. I campaigned on making sure that we can live in these communities, and taking a $4 cut right off was incredibly hard to stomach. So that was the bill as introduced. And the issue is, nobody wants to negotiate this bill. The only people who are really talking about this bill are the bill sponsors, because it has become such a political third rail to even talk about this, that we have the sponsors negotiating with themselves. So they introduced this bill in the first committee, which it passed 11-2 with the help of Democrats, and it landed in the Finance Committee, which is what we talked about. And I will tell you, the bill that came out of the Business Affairs Committee, I was a hard no on, because I saw that $4 as a tip clip, is what I called it. You were immediately taking $4 from people's paychecks without it was too blunt of a solution. So the bills that were the bill that was proposed, or the amendments that were proposed in committee last night, was to essentially a glide path. So over the next 4 years, in the first year, there'd be no cut. There'd be no cut because it's not fair to people to pass statewide legislation and have no cut, and to immediately take pay. So there'd be no cut in the first year. In the second year, it'd be $2. The third year, it'd be 70 more cents, and then the fourth year, $1.10. That is still not a great solution. But what I can tell you is the legislature is very intentional about making sure this gets better, if it can, as it moves through the process. So the bill last night was laid over. Nobody took a vote on it because it needed more work. So the sponsors are going back, working, taking more feedback, figuring out how to incorporate more local control to make sure that we can equalize the tip issue in Metro Denver and then be in a good place going forward to provide restaurants relief and do the least harm to workers. There's so much more for it to go. If that bill had passed last night, even with my vote, I wouldn't have been a yes on the floor because it has to get better. And the only way it's going to get better is if it goes through the process and gets to a point where it's acceptable. And it is just, I can tell you, it's been hard to negotiate because our good friend Steve Woodrow was the victim of bullying, frankly. They leafleted the Capitol with newsletters of him essentially saying some very, it was him pointing to another caricature of a person who had tip worker on their chest saying, "Get back to work, wage slave." And the rhetoric around this has been so explosive and just nasty that it's been hard to have really honest dialogue about this issue. I can tell you that I think locally and through podcasts, people are really upset about these issues. But I can tell you when I look at this, there is a path that we protect workers and protect workers at a living wage, and we provide businesses relief. I don't know what that's going to look like. And there has to be an element of local control. But I would encourage you, do not jump to conclusions. Don't go with what is being said. I'm telling you exactly the status of where this negotiation is. It's got to work its way through the process. And I am not going to vote for something that's going to hurt workers and prevent people from living in this community. But I also need to find a solution to make sure that those jobs stay in this community and those businesses stay open. Part of the stakeholding process was I had restaurants coming to me and tell me how bad it was, and I said, prove it. So they came back. I had 4 different restaurants in our district show me their books. Literally, show me their books. And I am shocked how they are still open. After 2 years of essentially $500,000 of losses, I don't know how they're still open. This is something that has to have action immediately and done in a way that protects workers and provides a path out for businesses so they can continue to stay in our communities. Yes?
Is it, the same question, is the issue that the minimum wage is too high for the businesses to stay open, or explain how that affects the restaurants?
Now this is really, really nuanced. So we have a city minimum wage, that's, I forgot what it was, 18 something, is that what it is? For Denver. $18 for the city minimum wage, which is higher than the state minimum wage. So in Denver, the tip credit, which means if you are a restaurateur, you can essentially take a few dollars off of that city minimum wage for tipped workers because your expectation is they will make it up in tips. So one of the things that we know is fact is the average tipped worker in Denver makes between $30 and $45 an hour with tips. On average, you got to work enough shifts. Granted, sometimes it's a slow season. You're not going to make that in a week. If you were to work the full year, you're making about $35 to $45 an hour. The problem is the folks in the back of the house who are not tipped are making just above Denver minimum wage, which we all know is not a living wage for here in Denver. So if you are a restaurateur and you're required to pay your front of the house folks more, but you can't, there's no money left to pay the back of the house, there becomes issues. So what the restaurants have asked for is some relief and flexibility to either pay less to the tip workers up front with the hope that they can sell more omelets or whatever they're selling, and hopefully pay the back of the house folks more, keep hours open longer so they can provide more shifts. It's an incredibly complex and nuanced issue. Nobody has a great answer for it, but I can tell you we're all working really, really hard to find a good solution. And there's going to be some tough votes ahead. And had we voted last night, if there was some demonstrable progress in this space, I was willing to let it move forward because it's got 2 more committees to go to in the House before it makes its way in the Senate. A vote in any one of these committees does not guarantee my vote final passage on the floor. It advances the process because the system is so broken and nobody will talk. Nobody will negotiate.
So one more question, and then sorry, we got to keep going with our agenda here.
It's not like it seems like not a good environment for businesses. All that stuff you set aside because homeless people in front of the place who's graffiti on the front of their business, the back of the business who's trash everywhere, and
Sure.
burn down cars and all kinds of. If those problems were resolved and there were more customers going into businesses, would anything what you're talking about be a problem?
I don't know, because it really depends on the business, right? So it depends on the business. What did you negotiate for your lease? What type of food do you provide? What are your food costs? What are your labor costs? What kind of business do you run? There's so many variables that go into it, which makes it even more complex. But I do recognize here in the northern part of 6, we have the East District or East Colfax project going up. And if you look at what happened on 16th Street, there's a model of what can happen when it's executed poorly. So I can tell you, whether you're a city official or a state official, there's very much front of mind how we prevent the East Colfax improvements from looking like 16th Street. Because those businesses are important. They've been there for decades. We have to provide them protection as they're going through this process. This is just one of many things the legislature is dealing with, frankly.
Since you're leaving,
Okay.
there's one thing.
We have to stop on the questions.
And that is restaurants that charge both service fees and still expect a full tip. That's crazy.
So-
I've gone to restaurants, they charge you 20% up front, and then you're still expected to tip the waiters.
So the question was, if you didn't hear it, is there are restaurants that are experiencing or experimenting with different models, such as like a 20% service fee or tip pooling or all these different things. I don't know. I think as Americans, as folks who really love the Denver restaurant culture, you are ingrained to tip. So whether there's a service fee and there's not an expectation tip, we still feel like we need a tip. So I think there's a lot of pressure when there's a service fee to do both. So, I mean, you could be tipping 40% of your bill in some of those circumstances, which means you just won't go out to a restaurant anymore. So we have a fundamental issue we're all trying to address, and I can tell you my colleagues are talking about this a lot and trying to do all the sausage making and cut the deals we can to get it into a better place. And if it's not a good place, it's not going to pass. But we're really, really working hard, and I know there's a lot. I know this is an issue. There's podcasts about it and news, and it's on 9 News. The one thing that's non-negotiable is nobody in Denver will ever make less than the Denver minimum wage under any proposal. That is not on the table. Like, no one is going to be paid below minimum wage. It is just how do we find that sweet spot to provide relief for restaurants and make sure our workers can continue to live in our communities. So hopefully, it was laid over. It's unknown when it'll be heard again, probably in a week or two, and that gives the sponsors 2 more weeks to come up with a better deal. So hopefully when I come back next month, I'll have an update for it. But I know just by the show of hands, people are talking about it. So I wanted to clear the air and let you know what we're doing. We're all coming at it in good faith. Please don't buy it in the rhetoric, and please be respectful of the folks that you've elected to be there, because I can tell you nobody is excited about taking money out of working people's pockets. Nobody wants to do that. But there is a pressing issue, and that's what you sent us there for, to solve tough problems. So please help us and respect us in that way as we're working through that process.
All right. Please welcome our Denver Dems chair, James Reyes.
Hey everybody, good to see you. Man, there's a lot of new faces in this room. Okay, how many of you are here for the first time at a Denver Dems meeting? Raise your hands high. Let's see. Wow. All right. I do hope this is just the beginning. We want to see you coming back. HD6 is a great district. I mean, I pulled in and the parking lot was full, and I see all these faces in here. This is exciting. So tonight, we want to be dictators, giving a little speech before Congress, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. When he said, I'm going to tell it like it is, what the hell does that mean? It's actually kind of frightening and eerie. Like, what do you mean by that? Anyway, this has been consuming me, obviously, and there's a lot of desire for action. There has been action. There can be more action. And we're doing a lot. So we just had a reorg. Let me step back a little bit. Reorg 2 weeks ago, a little over 2 weeks ago. We have a whole new slate of officers. And by the way, I want to recognize Matthew Logan is here, our new second vice chair. Where's Matthew? Come on, you can do better than that. It's like we're afraid to applaud or something, you know. Anyway, yeah, so I hope I'm missing any other officer, right? I didn't see anybody else here. Still the only one. Okay. Yeah, but it's been a busy 2 weeks because we're really retooling a lot. So, for example, our communications game has got to improve. But we have an exciting new captain who's taken that over, Betty Garcia. Some of you may know her. But our social media, Matthew can vouch for this, is just revolutionized under her. I mean, she creates these memes and these graphics, and I'm like, wow. Sometimes you just strike gold with a good volunteer, and she's doing it. She's killing it. But one thing we're working on is creating an action center on our website. So we've had no blog posts and things like that on things you can do. But, if you go to our website, you got to dig through the history of those blog posts to find it. So really, I think what makes sense is to have a single place where we have someone can go, and here are some things, some concrete things you can do to take action. Others have done some, I think, Westwood put together a pretty good version of this, is what I'm talking about, right? There's more that we can do. So what I'm asking of all of you, because I don't know everything that's going on or all the things that we could possibly do in this community, what I'm asking from all of you is to tell me what you know, right? Let's crowdsource all of these things together, and we'll combine. And sure, I'll get a lot of repeats, but that's okay. I'd rather get a lot of repeats and not find out about something that we should know about and communicate to all of us, right? So please share those things. And if you have ideas, share those ideas. So be on the lookout for that. That's coming. How many members of the State Central Committee are here? The State Central Committee. State. The Colorado Democratic Party Central Committee. Okay. Go ahead. Hi. Man, we're afraid to applaud, and we're just barely. Okay, so what's happening Saturday? Reorg. That's right, state reorg. We had our county reorg 2 weeks ago. State reorg is this coming Saturday. So if you're a member of the State Central Committee, please go. And if you can't go, please find a proxy. So that's coming up on Saturday. That's important. Okay, some of you might remember this way back in the day, but I used to host this thing called Drinking Liberally. Do anybody remember that? Yeah, Drinking Liberally. And we would get together every month at the Irish Snug, which is no longer there, sadly, and we'd meet in the basement and just hang out and have beers, or not, some don't drink. And sometimes we'd have a speaker, sometimes we wouldn't. Anyway, the point is it was a social gathering, right? This is important for us as Democrats, connecting with each other as Democrats, because it's one thing to come to a meeting like this, which we'll listen to folks speak and share ideas, but sometimes I just want to sit down with you and have a beer and just talk about what's going on in your life and hear from you, and also share what I'm thinking about, or a group of us, and form those bonds. Because let me tell you something, as things continue to get worse in this country, and they will, you realize we're only a month into this? Isn't that scary? A little over a month into this, and we still have 4 years. We're going to need each other. Our community, all of us in this room, look around. This room, we need each other. That's important. As things get worse for us, we need each other, because we, as a community, need to support each other, look out for each other, build relationships and friendships. All of that matters. And so we're going to we're spinning up a happy hour, right? And we're going to do other things, but we're going to have a happy hour. So basically Drinking Liberally, but it's going to be under the auspices of the party. And our first happy hour is going to be on March 30th. At Locales. You know Locales? It used to be the Park Hill Tavern on 11th in Ogden. Who knows that spot? Okay. So we're going to be meeting there for just a happy hour on the 30th. I'm sorry, on the 20th. 20th. No, I didn't say 30th. The 20th, 20. And we're going to be doing that every third Thursday of the month as an ongoing event. Okay? I'm also going to encourage the folks over here in HD6 to do something similar for HD6. But, I'm being told to hurry up. Okay, I'm going on. But the point is, these social events, they don't have to be a happy hour, right? You can come up with something else. I don't care what it is. But let's get together as a community. And so please come to the happy hour. That's a start. And let's just keep doing that every month. If you're able to make it. You can't make it this month, fine. Come next month. Whatever works. I'll quickly go through the rest of my things here. Oh yeah, just a couple of longer term things. We have our annual picnic, which is going to be on June 22nd. Just put that in your calendar. June 22nd, we got a date. It's going to be at Ruby Hill Park, so the same place as last time. And then we have our spring fundraiser on May 15th. I'll also put that in your calendar. So that's obviously not impending, but that's coming up. Kelly Rocky's over here. You all know Kelly?
Yes.
Yeah. So Kelly's going to be helping us out with diversity and inclusion. And she has accepted the appointment of Captain at Large for that. And so I guess I'll just address this, what we've always addressed, like, some people brought this up. Why are you putting a white person to do that? But it's okay. We've talked. Like, it's actually amazing what Kelly came to me with as a plan and some ideas. And I was really blown away, actually. I really was. Because we haven't had a really good program when it comes to diversity and inclusion. And Kelly came with a set of ideas, and I'm like, let's go, let's do it. I love it. So I'm really excited that Kelly has taken this role. I appreciate you doing that because it means a lot. It's an important part of the work we do. So is Kelly next? Okay, so because I've already used them all the time. See, I took up all your time, Kelly. But anyway, give Kelly a hand. She's going to talk about what she's working on.
Hi, I'm really sorry that I am very pasty. I blame my grandfather and really dominant Irish genes. So the point of the Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Accessibility Committee is outreach. It is making sure that we are involving all of the voices that need to be heard. And so what I would love to have in just a minute here, I'm going to walk around with a little brown notebook, and I would love to have your phone number and or email address because I want to build a steering committee. I want to have your ideas before we branch out and actually start building good stuff. So I want to hear from you. I don't care if you're pasty. I love it if you're old. I love it if you're all the things. I want to hear from you. And then the second thing I want to say is the news is bad. It's really, really hard to keep your head up and doing good stuff. So let me be your cure. Come and get involved. Come build something awesome. Instead of burning it down, let's go build something up. And then I want to hear from you how we're going to reach out and get our neighbors included. Okay?
Yay.
Because we're all neighbors and our community is the only thing that's going to hold us up. So can't wait to talk to you.
Yes.
All right. Representative Camacho mentioned that Leora Joseph was his law professor back in Massachusetts. Our next speaker, I am honored to say, was my antitrust professor up in Boulder. Please welcome Attorney General Phil Weiser.
It is great to be with you here at HD6. Thank you. Thank you. I want to start on antitrust. Then I want to talk about diversity and inclusion. I want to talk about our Democratic Republican and my future plans. So first, antitrust. That's what I like. 19 town halls. Having heard from 6,000 Coloradans, a basic question. Do you think it's a good idea for King Soopers and Safeway to merge?
No.
No effing way was the exact answer. Or over my dead body. We fought them in court. We stopped the merger.
Yes.
But here's the other part of this story. We investigated and we found out these two companies colluded with one another not to compete for workers during a strike. They also agreed not to compete for pharmacy customers. And so even though the merger is done, the case is not done, and we're going to win on that for the people of Colorado as well. Antitrust Part 2. Rents are going up and up and up. You know what a factor is? How many people heard of RealPage? RealPage is a software program that these corporate landlords use put in confidential information, what each of them is thinking about charging, and they all are sharing this information with their rivals. See, look at Andrew's face here. That's like what cartels do. And it doesn't make it legal just because you're doing it with a software program. We're suing them too. And for the trifecta, we're going after Greystar. Because Greystar advertised prices for people to live in apartments. Except when you went to sign the lease, they said, oh, the advertised rent is not the real rent.
You can't do that.
Because we've got a package delivery fee or a collective maintenance fee, and it would be hundreds of dollars more than people are advertised. That's deceptive. That's illegal. We're going after them too. Diversity is our strength in the United States of America. Inclusion is who we are. And e pluribus unum, out of many we are one, is our motto. And we will not be intimidated by an illegal intimidation campaign coming from Washington. We're going to stand on principle and make sure we advance equal opportunity for all here in the great state of Colorado. We're also not going to allow the unfair demonization and illegal treatment of immigrants here in Colorado. And when this administration started on the note of seeking to end birthright citizenship, overturning the Fourth Amendment, we said, hell no. We went to court and we won. And we've won multiple times standing up for the rule of law and the principle that the executive is not unlimited in its power. We have an executive who has to operate under law, which means the president can't just say, oh, I don't like this funding program for Meals on Wheels that Congress mandated. I'm not going to give them the money. They can't do that. We went to court and we won again. And nor can the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, have sensitive information like our Social Security numbers or bank accounts be accessed by people with no business with access to it. We went to court once again, and we won again.
Oh, good.
And so my pledge to you, as long as I'm Attorney General, is I will take on big fights for the people of Colorado. Against businesses that are making life less affordable by harming Coloradans, fighting for more affordable places people can live, fighting to protect our land, air, and water, and fighting for the rule of law and our freedoms during this challenging time. And I will tell you, being elected as your Attorney General and fighting for you has been the most meaningful work I've done, which is why I'm running to be your next governor. We've got some very significant challenges ahead. These issues around affordability are straining what this community fabric can be, and we've got to find ways to make sure that we're not letting people get cheated. We're building more housing, and people can afford to work as teachers or firefighters or law enforcement in the communities they live. We've got to make sure that we take protecting our land, air, and water seriously during this time of climate change. We've got to make sure that with time the federal government's denying it's even happening, that we are standing our ground, standing up against wildfires, addressing a drought, and making sure that we're restricting emissions that harm our air quality, contribute to climate change. And we've got to make sure that we protect our next generation, because young people now are hurting. We're seeing this again and again. The average teenager spends 5 to 6 hours a day on cell phones. I'm working on a bipartisan bill that will require every school district to have a policy that doesn't let cell phones interfere with learning. And we're working on programs to make sure that young people are connected with adults who they know care about them. And this is work we're doing with money we got by suing Jewel, but this is one-time money. And we've got a longer-term problem for education in Colorado. We don't fund it enough. We don't support enough good teachers. We're not supporting youth mental health. We're not supporting technical education for those who don't go on to college. That's all got to change, and it will when I'm your governor. And the final thing I want to end on is I want to be a governor who leads with hope for everybody, bringing people together. I want to do a call to service. So young people can serve as law enforcement, can serve as firefighters, can serve counseling, nursing, and teaching all across our great state. Spend a couple years serving, answering the call, and making sure that people build these skills, this hard work, and a sense that we're in it together. This is a very challenging time. And during challenging times, we in Colorado, we as a nation, can have one of two things happen. We can be broken, or we can open ourselves up to repair and to renewal. For us to feel that we are a beacon for our nation, showing what it means to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. I believe in this country and our values. And even in the face of the lawless, inhumane actions we're seeing in D.C. that I'm not challenging in court, I believe we can come through this together. We in Colorado have work to do. Thank you all for doing this work. It is more important than ever. It's an honor to serve you. Appreciate you all very much. Thank you. Yes.
All right, we have time for a few questions.
Well, I have a question about, you guys take them to court, you win, but then they're still ignoring. What do we have? The Supreme Court isn't going to be stepping in the way. Getting involved. They're the ones who let Trump do whatever he wants.
So Janet's question is, will the rule of law hold?
Right.
Yeah.
And the answer is we will see. I am mildly optimistic, and here's why. So far, we're seeing a lot of efforts to comply with court rulings. So the money that we said they can't halt is now being largely provided. The information we said you can't get access to, they no longer have access to. And the money they were cutting off NIH funding for CU and CSU is now flowing again. So we are cautiously optimistic. As for what will the Supreme Court do in these cases, I will tell you, these are not close cases. Yeah. The birthright citizenship case is plain as the text of the 14th Amendment. And even this Supreme Court, I believe, will say it is not the role of the president to try to overturn the Constitution.
Do you support the transition to a full-time legislator?
Matt, you're here after me, right? Honestly, the question is, should we have a full-time legislature? And I have not spent enough time asking Matt that question. So I'm not going to answer for Matt, but we'll see what Matt says in a little bit.
Yes.
Yes.
Is there anything that the Attorney General can do to ensure that we have fair elections? That's what scares me.
Carol's question is, will we have fair elections in 2 and 4 years? The beauty of our constitutional system is states manage elections. Yeah. And as long as I'm your Attorney General here in Colorado, hell yes, we're going to have fair elections. I'm not going to allow people to intimidate others from voting. I've been doing those cases before. I'm going to make sure our votes are counted and respected. I've been to the Supreme Court on that issue before. And Weld County can't gerrymander their districts for county commission. We won that case in the state Supreme Court.
All right, last question, Chris.
Yeah. What do you think of the tipped wage bill?
I'm going to listen more to what our great reps have to say. I was hearing Sean going on about this, and so I know they're working hard on it. I want to let them speak for that, and I need to listen to what they're doing before I can offer any position on my own. So
Smart answer.
I try to listen. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen more than you talk.
Yeah.
Do we also need to file a case to protect our national forests?
This is an important point. The national forests are vulnerable to the Forest Service people being fired and to who knows what. I will be on the case as soon as I see any basis to act. I'm really concerned about protecting our land, air, and water and the disregard for our natural resources from this administration.
All right. I know there are more questions. Perhaps Phil.
You can come grab me if you want to ask.
Last one.
but a lot of people have been waiting patiently to speak, so I'm going to ask everybody to hold the questions or address them individually. Please give a round of applause.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
All right, please welcome our state senator for Senate District 31, Senator Matt Ball. How do you feel about a full-time legislature?
Oh, geez, I need to think about that. I'm not sure. That's a great question, though. Hi, everybody. It's great to see you. I am your newly, recently appointed state senator, Matt Ball. I recognize a lot of folks in this room, but I think we also have some people who are here for the first time. Raise your hand if this is your first HD6 meeting.
Wow.
Awesome. Thank you all for coming. Also, would like to extend a congratulations to some of the newly elected House district leadership. So Shanice Malouf, congratulations. There's a storied history behind the position of 6A co-captains, so I trust you'll carry that torch. It's an honor to speak to you all today. There's so much to talk about, and I felt inspired listening to Phil Weiser talk and learned a lot from what Sean said. So I'm happy that I get to go third and continue the conversation. Before I get into what we're doing at the legislature, I would love to introduce you all to my aide, who is here tonight. So my aide in the back is Abby Marsberry. If you reach out to my office, which you should do at any point, I'm happy to sit down with constituents whenever. Abby's the one who will set that up. She's phenomenal. She has experience at the legislature. She had previously worked for Representative Tammy Story and Representative Leslie Herod. And like many people in Denver, is a Midwest refugee. She joins us from Iowa. And she is a twin and she loves building flower Legos. So now you know Abby. The other two things to announce is there is a QR code floating around that you can use to sign up for my newsletter, which I'm hoping to get out the first version of today. I'll be using the same list that Chris Hansen used. So if you previously got emails from Chris, you should get this email. Let me know if you don't. But you can also use the QR code. And then there is also something floating around. I'm going to start doing some regular, just set up time. I'm going to call it a chat with Matt. We'll get coffee. I'll just, host up at a local business, every once in a while. Hoping to do this every month, and just invite anybody who wants to come chat. So the first one will be on Sunday at 2, because that is when my kids nap, and it will be at the new Secret Garden. Saturday at 2. Sorry, Saturday at 2. It just got scheduled. It'll be at the Secret Garden next to Cheeseman Park. If anybody has been there, it's new and it's fantastic. So we'd love to talk to anybody if you want to come there. And without further ado, let me dive into what I have been up to at the legislature. Love to talk about my bills for the first time, which is exciting for me. Also talk a little bit about some of the big discussions that are happening in the Senate. As I think you get a sense of, a lot is happening at the legislature. And so, the tip wage bill, for instance, that we're talking about is something, Sean is deeply involved in now. I'll be the last person to see that. So that's sort of not the conversation that I've been surrounded. The one I've been surrounded by is about immigration, largely, after we just got done with guns. So I'd love to tell you more about that. And then just talk a little bit about my priorities for the session. So without further ado, I am proud to have introduced my first bill last week, which is a climate bill that I'm very excited for. It is, in the spirit of this district and Chris Hansen, it is pretty wonky. It is all about carbon reductions to materials that are used to build buildings. So there's actually a big industry. Colorado is, we're cutting edge. I did not know this. We're cutting edge for a lot of startups or investment in companies that are making concrete in really innovative ways. So concrete is simple. It accounts for a huge amount of carbon emissions. 4% of the world's carbon emissions are just concrete. But there are new methods to make the same materials. There's CU has done a bunch of research There's a company that does carbon capture, so it's carbon negative concrete. There's a professor at CU who grows a type of coral that turns into concrete. In any event, this is a bill that would essentially invest in this area to try to make Colorado a leader. And I think, particularly coming from the city where we've all voted on, sidewalk legislation, my hope is that this will turn into something where we're, being a model to the rest of the country of how we can, do this type of infrastructure work in a really green way. So that's my first bill that I'm very excited about. It is bipartisan, which is not always easy to do on a climate bill. My second bill, which will be introduced probably tomorrow or maybe on Friday, is one I've talked a little bit about, which is I had talked on the vacancy campaign about a problem that I've been working at the city, when I was working with unhoused population, particularly folks with really high acuity mental health issues. And one big problem is that people get released from our jail in the middle of the night all the time. So there are hundreds of people who get released from the jail at 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning, and they actually have to because of the unintended consequence of a state law that was passed 3 or a little bit longer, maybe I think it's been 6 years now that this was passed back in 2019. The bill was was well-meaning. This is just an unintended consequence. The jail sometimes has to release people at 3 or 4 in the morning. And so I used to run a team of social workers who came to work at 8 or 9 in the morning, and we would have a bed lined up at a sober living facility. But the jail, even if the person wanted just to wait and not go out in the cold until they were handed off, the jail couldn't do that. So this bill will fix that. It has, I think, a really good base of support with criminal justice groups who I've been doing this with, in addition to folks like the sheriffs. So it's a big coalition. And then the other thing that this bill does is actually around when people get out of prison. And again, a little sort of wonky, but we're in the middle of a budget crisis. We need to find $1 billion somewhere, as I'm sure you guys have all read. We spend a ton of money basically running a nursing home in our prisons. There's really sick people that are in prison who are going to die soon, 75, 80 years old. I mean, the opposite of a threat to anybody. But we are just pouring money into caring for these folks instead of letting them, find some sort of care on the outside, even when that care exists, even when we can line up a nursing home or a family is willing to take someone. So this bill that I'm working on would help some pieces of this process that aren't working right now. And the hope is that, this will lead to more humane treatment for a group of individuals in a way that also has this impact of saving money. And I'll just say, as someone who did some legal work with folks who were in prison, this is a bill that's been meaningful for me to work alongside some of those same groups. So those are the two bills that I am introducing. I've been joining a number of other bills that either started with other colleagues of mine in the Senate or in the House, and that extends from everything from single staircase buildings, which I see as a big housing issue, to I have them written down, to a bill on batteries, which is another climate bill that I recently joined with a colleague, and to a bill on peer programs, also in the reentry space. So what I hope to be my focus at the legislature is around things like housing and climate and mental health. So I think what I'm working on right now reflects that. But I've really enjoyed the work, and I'm happy to be working on these bills that I'm very excited about. I did want to talk about one of the conversations that has been happening in the Senate on immigration, in part because I think it touches a broader national conversation that we are all listening to right now. It's not something that you will necessarily hear a lot about because it's a bill that died. So I sit on the State Affairs Committee in the Senate, and that committee frequently sees a lot of Republican bills that are introduced there and that go no further. Senate Bill 47 was one of those. It made some headlines, but not a lot. But what Senate Bill 47 tried to do is it tried to give rural sheriffs the authority to keep people in jail even after they should be released from jail under criminal law so that they can make a handoff to ICE for the purposes of deporting people. So this is what Senate Bill 47 would do. And the narrative for the proponents of the bill, and there were a number of rural sheriffs that descended on the Capitol, was the same thing that you hear happening federally. It was, these are dangerous people. I heard more about Tren de Aragua than I ever thought I cared to hear. And there's a threat to our communities, and we have to act now. And not only that, but we've got this group of state Democrats that are preventing us from focusing on public safety. That was the narrative. I dug into this bill, and what I found didn't shock me, but what I found is that narrative is wrong. And I'll tell you why on the details of this bill. So the county sheriff in Teller County had previously signed an agreement that actually any sheriff can sign with ICE, in which they can tell ICE when they have someone in their custody who they don't think is a citizen. Every sheriff's office right now actually has the ability to do this. Only one sheriff does it. And I think that should tell you a little bit about how much of a value this is to the people who are actually enforcing the law. Only one county had an agreement like this, and it was a sheriff by the name of Sheriff Mikesell, who has made a big public campaign about how he is marching to the Capitol because he has this program and we're tying his hands and things are getting out of control. The ACLU sued him, and what came out at trial was that when he was on the stand and he was asked about times in which there had been a lapse in that agreement, it's sort of dependent on staffing. There's like one guy in the sheriff's office can do it. When that guy was on leave or there was a break, he was asked about this. He had no idea that had even happened. So this was not something that did what he said it did, right? And in fact, the court found there was no evidence to support that this had ever made a difference towards public safety. And before sort of marching on the Capitol, this same sheriff held a press conference where he talked about 4 dangerous criminals that they had recently picked up. 3 out of the 4 charges were for conspiracy to commit forgery. So what I think this shows is that what's happening right now in our state is that there's a movement to feed national Republicans information that can be used to further a narrative that frankly is bullshit. Because the truth is that we've got over 11 million immigrants in this country. Like, these are members of our community. These are farm workers, these are union workers, these are doctors sometimes, they're accountants, they're people who have been here for a very long time. And look, I was born in 1986. This has been the case essentially my entire adult life. We've had an enormous influx of immigration, largely from our southern border. And I think the experience has been very similar. People talk about how America is a nation, a nation of immigrants, but like that stopped after World War II. It didn't. This is the same. It's the same thing. My grandfather came here in the 1920s, fleeing what became the Holocaust from Poland. I don't know if he was legal when we got here. A lot of people in his position weren't. I'm here, as his grandson, years and years later, and I think that same thing is going to bear out with many of the people who have, been coming here for a long time. So that's the truth. The narrative is all manufactured. And for me, Senate Bill 47 was just a good illustration of, really how that's manufactured. Tomorrow's a big day. Our mayor is going to be in DC, and he is going to be grilled in the most, it's just political theater, but he's going to be grilled in the most performative way. And I think what worries me about this and what I am fighting for at the Capitol is, all the rhetoric is going to be what it is, and I don't know what that's going to look like over time either. I am confident that Trump is going to fail because what he is doing is stupid and it's not going to work. But, the the rhetoric aside, what matters is what actually impacts people, what harms people. And so what I'm really watching out for is what happens at the federal level that's going to do things like pull people off Medicaid in this state. What's happening at the federal level that's going to have these consequences that place burdens on our state that we can't solve because we're completely strangled by Tabor, right? So, I think this is it's a tough time. It's a critical time. I'm really appreciative for all of you for coming out and being civically engaged in this time. We're going to make it through the next 4 years. It's going to be a long 4 years. But I'm really, in conclusion, I'm really excited to be at the Capitol, sort of fighting these good fights in this way, and happy to answer any questions from the group.
We have time for 3
Go ahead. Oh, speaking of Tabor, what are we doing?
What are we doing? I'll tell you what I think we should do. So I think we need to go to the ballot. I think we need to do it in 2 years. I think it's beyond urgent. There was a report recently that showed that we will exhaust our reserves before the end of this decade, just on the path we're on. I mean, it's completely unsustainable. This year's rough. Next year's going to be rough too. I think we need to go to the ballot. I think we need to be strategic about it. We've asked Coloradans to raise their taxes before. They've said no. I don't think we should ask that same question again. I do think that there is room in sort of the political conversation right now to talk about a progressive income tax. So, other folks have talked about this. Shanice has talked about this. And there's some people who've worked on this. If you raise taxes a 1/10 of a percentage point for people who make over $500,000 a year, you would generate $2 billion a year. So we're out of our budget hole, right? And we've got money to absorb, what happens on the federal level this year, or in the future, actually have a mental health care system, for instance, fully fund education, catch up on para, all the things we need to do. And I think that could pass. So, it's really early because we're coming out of the last election cycle. I think what the next ballot initiatives look like, we'll see how that takes shape. But that's the idea that I'm most excited about.
At reorg, you told us about Kismet, you're considering his wife. Do you have an update? And also, could you talk a little bit about stuff that's happening with immigration at the state capital and things that are happening that way?
Yeah, absolutely. So the question was about my interpreter, Kismet, who's my interpreter in Afghanistan, who if you were at the vacancy committee election, introduced me. Kismet's like a brother to me. So Kismet's wife is pregnant. She's due later this month. It's his first child. She is Afghan. And so Kismet has been in the process of bringing his wife to the United States so that she can have the baby here, and because she'll be on a spousal visa. So this is not a visa that's connected to anything humanitarian. It's the same visa that you would get if you married somebody from Germany. This process was happening, and Kismet was notified that it was time for his wife she had to stop in Qatar because you get shots in Qatar or something like that. But she had that last stop, and then she was going to fly home to Dallas, where Kismet lives. And the funding freeze happened. All the money got turned off after Kismet had flown to Kabul. And after being told about their flight scheduled on January 31st, they were informed on January 29th that it was canceled. And so they became, effectively stranded. Kismet has a job. He has to make money and, support his future family. So he can't stay in Afghanistan forever. We worked really, really hard to try to dislodge this at the federal level. One of the EOs that Trump issued, and there's too many to keep track of, so if you missed this one, I get it. One of the ones he issued was basically stopping all refugee resettlement for, I think 90 days or something like that. The awful part about this, but I think it shows just what happens when you're this reckless about running the government. What happened was they canceled all these flights because the majority of people on them are in a refugee program for a visa. She wasn't. So nothing that the government was saying or that was coming out as a policy should have prevented her from going to Qatar and then coming to the United States. But it's just this incredibly like irresponsible, reckless way that, you know, Elon Musk is just like pulling giant levers of the government and doesn't care who gets hurt in the process. And so this was a very, very real example of that. I will give a shout out to Senator Hickenlooper, who filed the formal inquiry to try to dislodge this. A lot of folks became involved. Jason Crow's office was super helpful. The whole Denver delegation was behind us. Ultimately, she got to the point that she could no longer fly because of where she is in her pregnancy before we were able to solve the problem. So it makes me really sad, honestly, that my brother, my interpreter, can't be there for the birth of his son. He's an American citizen. You know, his son's going to be too. His wife will be too. But you know, that's where we are. So I wish I had a better update.
All right, last question.
So I think this is unique, especially to our district, because our former representative sued based on communications that were not transparent and won. But since then, the backlash, the rubber band has been really pulled tight in the other direction, to the point where just our legislators don't have to be transparent in their communication, and we don't have information in regards to how legislators are communicating on Signal. Like at the city level, wherever two or more of you are gathered, there's a lawsuit, right? Like you city council can't do that. That's prohibited. So I'm wondering if you can speak to legislation that's moving through to continue that prohibition of transparency between legislative correspondence and communication, because it makes journalism really hard. Yeah. You know, and it actually locks journalists out of the process to cover it for the people. So how are you dealing with that, and what are we doing?
It's a great question, and not one I had thought much about before looking at that bill. To be honest, I think it's tough because what we do is we work for the public, right? You're our bosses, and that's important. I think that's sort of fundamental here. I do think that people have a right to know a lot. I don't think there's much that should be protected. Also, having been there, there's the realities of the job when you talk to your colleagues, right, about any of a number of things. I mean, this happens on the Senate floor, and you know that is a public environment. But then there, are certainly conversations that happen behind the scenes. Those, in my experience, I was sort of curious how the legislature followed the law, especially in the wake of the lawsuit that was filed 2 years ago. I've been pleasantly surprised. For instance, we notice our caucus meetings, so they actually are public. I think there may have been one case where somebody came. Usually nobody does, but it's done sort of in accordance with the law. And the same is true. The law changed last year, so I wasn't around before this recent change. And for everybody else in the room, there have been some tweaks made to Cora in the last several years that I'm sort of falling in on. But at least under the law that was passed last year, the caucus as a whole and the committees have been very formal about how we share with the press. The bill that recently came through, I think it was more geared towards kind of the apparatus in state government that responds to Cora requests. And I saw this at the city too. Like you sort of have to hire a part of state government or a part of city government to process Cora requests, just because the volume is so high.
But I don't understand because they're already being paid. So on background, like you have to pay. I think what's the maximum? Another $40 per hour potentially to get public documents. So essentially, someone who works for the city or the state is going to find the public documents, going to find the email, but you are likely to be charged an additional $40 per hour for their time, but they're already on staff. So then when
Doing other jobs as a state employee, may I be so bold?
Okay.
I mean, I'm doing a different job. If someone said to me, and also pull this, I would not be doing my job in unemployment insurance.
Is that how that goes?
Okay.
Yeah. So my perspective on this.
And you guys could get together and talk.
Yeah, I would love to continue the conversation.
Yeah, we gotta get going. We're gonna get thrown out of here.
Are we out of time?
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm so sorry.
I wasn't sure that, I didn't know that you guys were, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, come talk to me.
All right, guys. Thanks.
I'm curious.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
All right, up we have our finance chair, Mr. Mark Cameron Salmon.
What's the last name, Jay?
Cameron.
Rhymes with?
Sam.
Thank you. I had breakfast with them on Sunday, and they're calling me Cayman. I'm like, no, that was my dad. I'm Cameron, rhymes with salmon. All right, I have three things. First of all, I want to thank everybody who brought food tonight that had signed up. So hold your applause until we're done, but I don't. Where's Jan Pilkington? Oh, right in front of me. Man, these reading glasses suck. Sue Felton's right here. Where's Barry? Barry Hochstadt is over there. I don't know where Mike Lopez went. He tried to sneak out. And I said, you can't sneak out till you donate. And Randy Ross is our every month brownie maker.
All right.
And then I do all the desserts, and there are leftovers. So before you leave, please take a baggie that's on the table, fill it up with some stuff, because I am sick of looking at this food. And please take a can of pop, because those have gone back and forth the last 2 months. And I don't want to keep carrying them. So, good news is for April, we're all set for food sign up for our meeting.
Yay!
I had 5 people say, I'll do April. Great, you're making my life easier. I may need a couple of people for May, and I may be calling some of you and going, how about doing May? One of the things that I do for House District 6 is finance chair. So in order to pay for this church, our dues, supplies, all of that, we have to raise money every month. So if you are willing to donate tonight, I don't know where the BREs are. No, the blank ones.
I only have a few left,
Okay.
but we have some on the table.
So Karen will walk around, collect your BREs. If you are doing cash and you have donated previously, all I need is your name. That's it, because you're in my system, in my computer, and I can pull everything up that way. If you are doing a check and you've donated before, I don't need anything but the check and your name. If you are wanting to do a credit card, you do need to fill out the BRE. That's, I don't know, somebody hold one up. Thank you. You do need to fill that out completely, because I do have to enter that into our system, so we get credit for that. So we would appreciate all donations. Last thing I want to mention, our annual spring fundraiser is going to be Saturday, April 19th. We have a different location this year. Did you hear anything back? Because I haven't gotten an email back.
No.
So Kathy and I went over to, what's it called? The Hangar Club. It's behind where Wings Over the Rockies is and where the Lowry Beer Garden is. Literally right behind them. There's a big parking lot. There's a parking garage. We're not going to be able to hold our fundraiser at Lowry Beer Garden again. One, the room is too small. We had too many people, which is a good thing. So we found this place. Kathy and I went over today to talk to the manager. And this place is really cool. You can play golf there, but I don't fully understand it. But you hit the golf ball, and it's on a screen. And if anybody's played there, you'll understand it. I don't play golf. I just watch golf or miniature golf. So it's April 19th. It's just Saturday. It's going to be 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Last year, we had a phenomenal fundraiser. We raised over $4,500. So that will be our goal this year. We will announce everything. We'll have a flyer. I would look for it somewhere toward the last week of this month. And you will be able to buy your tickets on Eventbrite. And it's really quite simple. We're also going to do a silent auction like we did last year. So if anybody wants to donate something that will make money, please contact me and let me know what you want to donate for the silent auction. We had really good donations last year. We will definitely hit up. Did Matt leave?
Yeah.
Probably snuck out before I had a chance to say this. We ask our elected officials to donate lunch or dinner for 3 people, them and 2 of you. That always makes really good money every year. We'll have some other cool stuff. I'm looking to try to get tickets for one of the shows at the Buell. So we really hope to see a lot of people there. Our goal is 50 people, but where it's going to be at, we could have 250 people. So you will hear from us about that. Any questions? Okay.
What time?
12 to 2, Saturday. And I just have one quick thing. So for those of you who don't know our friend Stu Ziegler, he lived in 6 for a long, long time and was a PO for a long, long time. And he moved to Wheat Ridge, big mistake, but you know. He is now back to Denver, and we are ecstatic to have him back. And you and your beautiful wife are always super nice to us and really help us with everything. So I am so happy to see you tonight, and I look forward to seeing your wife. That's all I got. I don't know who's next.
All right. I wanted to introduce myself real quick for those of you that are new that I haven't gotten a chance to meet. I'm Shanice Malouf. I'm your new co-captain for 6A. I'm so excited. And in the name of keeping it time effective, I want to use my time because I'm very passionate about our community and celebrating birthdays. So it is Adam First, Precinct 629's birthday. Let's all sing for him. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Adam. Happy birthday to you. Thank you.
All right. Okay, last but not least, I don't want us to forget. I'm here to introduce the current and plan RTD improvements and initiative. Chris Nicholson, who is director of the District A of the RTD Board of Directors, and congratulations, Chris, on getting elected.
Right behind you. So I know that everybody wants to get out of here because we're coming up on 8:30. So I'll just address a couple of things really quickly. So first off, just thank you all or those of you who did, for supporting me in the election. It's a really cool role, and I'm excited. Couple of things to let you know about. The first one is we are getting, or I should say, this district, District 6, is getting 15-minute service on the 73 with the May service changes. So that's the Quebec Street bus.
that is going to go up to every 15 minutes between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. We're one of the only lines that is getting 15-minute services in this next change, and I'm really, really happy to see that because we've demonstrated such strong ridership over the last year or so. The second thing I want to talk about is security. RTD has heard the feedback from community about the concerns in terms of security on the buses, security on the trains, general feelings of safety. So what we're doing, we have already staffed up to over 100 officers. That's up from, I think it was 13 about 3 years ago. We're going to get to 150 post-certified sworn officers by the end of the year that we'll be deploying throughout the system, including our first detective squad. That's to address things like theft of copper wires that happens across the system in different jurisdictions. We have a canine squad that the federal government, under the Biden administration, paid for us to do dog sniffing at Union Station. So those are just some of the pieces of the security infrastructure. The other piece of that, we have a transit watch app that has been out for a few years now, and we've started to see some really significant uptick from members of the community using that to report and actively get responses to incidents on transit. So if you are riding RTD, I highly recommend downloading the Transit Watch app. If you have something that happens, this is not a report it to us and maybe we'll deal with it later on. This gets dealt with in real time, and they will stop the train and send a security person on to deal with someone who's breaking the rules. This happens all the time. So it's a really wonderful way to get in touch with RTD staff in real time and let them know about a security incident that's taking place. We have seen actually as a result of some of those efforts, calls for service, and this is in the nice packet, and feel free to take one of those home if you're interested in it. It's the whole presentation that we give this month, go down. Individuals have begun to report fewer and fewer security incidents just over the last year. And so we're really proud of that because people are clearly, we're addressing some of the main concerns that we're having. Another thing that's gone into place, we're keeping elevator doors at some of the stations, and it's hopefully going to get to all of them open so that it's not a place where people can do drugs with the doors closed. And the doors only close when you actually take the elevator. We have put into place this new board possibly the most aggressive CEO goals that there have been over the last, pretty much my entire time in Colorado, the last decade. We're pushing for, we've asked our CEO to get ridership up to 83%, which is basically national average. If you look at peer transit agencies for bus ridership at 83% on-time performance. We're pushing to get ridership up to 69 million over the 65 million that we're at right now. So, we may not get there in terms of all of the things that we're asking for this year, but it was a real priority of this new board to say, let's aim for where we need to be at, not just where we think we can easily get to. And I'm really proud. We had some tough votes to get those goals in place, but I'm really proud that we were able to get there. Let's see. Already talked about the service change adjustments, the light rail. So I'm sure you all read over the last year about the significant challenges that we've had around the light rail. We had an unexpected and very significant amount of maintenance on the rail lines that needed to be dealt with immediately because the PUC, Public Utilities Commission, told us to. That has been largely addressed. There are still some slow zones on the light rail, but the vast majority of the ones that were in place as of last summer, last fall, have been taken care of thanks to significant work that's been done both by RTD and by contractors that have been hired. And that will continue to try to address those. So if you've been holding off on taking the light rail to come downtown, give us a try again. I promise you it is better now. To that end, one of the things that I'm most excited about, up until this year, if you went to a light rail station, the only thing you saw was the schedule that was pre-programmed, i.e. whatever we thought it was going to be. As of end of second quarter, we will be showing real-time information at the platform, and it will be based on the GPS locations of every single train. So it will be much more accurate to what you are actually going to get, which I think is a big impact, because if you can drive, and you're like, should I wait or should I drive? Should I wait for the train? This way, you'll have a much better immediate read of what that is. The last thing I'll mention, and this is something that I personally care about probably more than almost anything else that is going to happen this year. Starting in the middle of Q3 is what we've been promised, and I'm taking it at their word. We will have credit card tap to pay across the entire system. So you will be able to use tapping your credit card, tapping your iPhone, and pay for RTD. That will include the same fare capping, so you won't be charged more than you would buying a pass. We will be able to connect that up with your senior discount or your student discount so that people can actively just walk on. And we're really, really stoked about how much easier that's going to make it for people who don't ride transit on a regular basis. I'm happy to take exactly one question, because I think if I don't, Karen will eat me alive. But I have on the table, by the way, if you would not mind, feedback forms. There's a QR code. Please take a picture of it, scan it, and fill it out. It's a short form that will take you all of 5 minutes or less. And tell us about how you're feeling about RTD as of right now and what your questions are. So yeah, just take a second to do that if you can. And yeah, does anybody have exactly one question?
Exactly.
Nope.
We love you.
Thank you. All right, there you go.
Okay, folks, we have some more stuff, but we're not going to do any of it. I'm just going to do the door prizes. So. Oh yes, if you would like any of the leftovers, please do go over to the place and get some of them. And we do need you all to please pick up the chairs and the tables. And all these papers on the tables, if you could give them to Janine Ransom, she's going to be picking them up. She's right in the middle of the thing, right there. So. He's going to be very, very non-partisan about what... Alice Harris? Alice Harris? Are you here? Or did you go home already? Stephanie Wilson? Stephanie? Yay! You get 4 brand new, beautiful homemade postcards and a pen. Where are you? Okay, 2. Oh, Katie March. You are the proud recipient. Oh. You're welcome. And a brand new pen. Oh, Pablo! Pablo, where are you? Yay! And then you can come over to my house and we'll write on them. Yeah, I made them. Oh, you can color on them. And I like you, Senator. And Bob Schmidt. Bob Schmidt. Are you here? Bob Schmidt? Oh, Cynthia Crawford. Yay. All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you for helping us clean up. You're welcome. So this is the card that I made. There's me. And your brand new pen.